For decades, Prince Andrew has existed in a kind of royal blind spot. He was Queen Elizabeth II's second son, the so-called spare, charismatic, confident, and for a long time, untouchable. Whilst Charles carried the weight of the crown and Anne quietly worked herself to the ground, Andrew cultivated a very different image. He was the royal who liked luxury, enjoyed status, and leaned heavily into privilege. And crucially, for many years, the institution protected him. Here's everything you might not have known, in summary. To understand the secrets the royal family hid about Prince Andrew, we must first look at the history of how the royal family deals with embarrassment. One thing's for sure, it doesn't confront it. It waits, it deflects, it minimises, and if possible, it quietly waits for the problem to go away. Andrew benefited from that system for a very long time. Long before his name became synonymous with scandal, there were already rumours swirling around him. His lifestyle had raised eyebrows among royal circles. He was known for expensive tastes that didn't match his official income, for cultivating friendships with wealthy businessmen, and for using royal status to open doors that otherwise would be closed. None of this was illegal, but it was uncomfortable. The palace's solution wasn't to rein him in publicly, but to manage perceptions. One of the earliest things the royal family effectively hid about Andrew was the extent to which he blurred the lines between public duty and private gain. As a trade envoy for the UK, he travelled widely, meeting foreign leaders and billionaires alike. On paper, this was about diplomacy and British business interests. In reality, it often placed Andrew in the orbit of deeply controversial figures. The palace insisted he was acting appropriately, even as diplomats privately expressed concern that he was freelancing, leveraging his title more for personal influence than national benefit. But the biggest and most consequential relationship that Andrew had, and the one that the palace would insist it knew nothing about, was with Jeffrey Epstein. Andrew's relationship with Epstein wasn't a fleeting acquaintance. He stayed at Epstein's properties, was photographed with him, and was seen with Epstein after Epstein had been convicted in 2008 of soliciting prostitution from a minor. This is a crucial point that the palace has downplayed for years.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, I do.
Epstein was not an unknown figure when Andrew continued his association with him. His criminal record was public, and yet the royal family's response was silence. Andrew was described as having ceased contact with Epstein, though evidence suggested otherwise. And there was no public reckoning, no explanation, and no accountability. The strategy seemed to be that if nothing was said, nothing would stick, and for a very long time that approach worked. But the world has changed. When Virginia Giuffre accused Prince Andrew of sexual assault, allegations he has consistently denied, the palace was suddenly faced with a crisis it could no longer manage quietly. What became clear in that moment was not just the seriousness of the allegations, but how unprepared the institution was to deal with them transparently. One of the most striking things the royal family concealed was how deeply involved Andrew remained in royal life, even after the allegations became public. He continued to appear at events, he retained his titles, he lived on royal property, and behind the scenes, efforts were made to shield him from scrutiny. Statements were carefully worded, legal strategies were considered. The priority was not public understanding, but institutional survival. And then came the Newsnight interview in 2019, a moment that is now infamous. Andrew's decision to sit down for that interview revealed more than he likely intended.
We now know that he was and had been procuring young girls for sex trafficking.
We now know that. At the time, there was no indication to me or anybody else that that was what he was doing.
In trying to defend himself, he exposed a stunning lack of awareness, empathy, and credibility.
So you would have made that connection because you stayed with him, you were a visitor, a guest on many occasions at his homes, and nothing struck you as suspicious?
Nothing.
During that whole time?
Nothing.
His explanations were widely ridiculed, and his denial hinged on details that made little sense to viewers.
He knows what happened. I know what happened. And there's only one of us telling the truth, and I know that's me.
The palace later claimed it had not approved of the final form of that interview, but at this point it was too late. That interview cracked the illusion of control. What followed was a rapid shift in strategy. Andrew was quietly removed from public duties. The language used was careful, almost antiseptic. He was stepping back. He was doing so with the Queen's approval. There was no admission of wrongdoing, but there was an implicit acknowledgement that his presence had become untenable. Still, and even then, the royal family continued to shield him in crucial ways. One of the most controversial moments came when it emerged Andrew had reached a financial settlement with Virginie Giuffre in 2022. The settlement included no admission of liability, but it involved a substantial sum reportedly paid to avoid a trial. What the palace failed to explain was where that money came from and how much institutional support Andrew received in arranging it. Reports suggested the Queen's funds were used, or at least accessed indirectly, a claim Buckingham Palace never fully clarified. Another thing the royal family effectively hid was how long concerns about his behaviour had existed internally. Former staff suggested that discomfort around Andrew was not new, that his entitlement and poor judgment were well known long before Epstein's name ever entered public conversation. But none of that was ever addressed openly.
One has only to look at an album of old family photographs to see how much has altered, even within the memory of our own parents and grandparents.
They leaked out through court documents, interviews, photographs, and settlements. Each revelation chipped at the carefully managed image of dignity and restraint. If you enjoyed this summary, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.
He's a driver, but he's only having a go, I think.
Who is that?
Oh. Who is it? Do you know?
Yes, I do.
Who?
Well, look. It's the same person that we've been